Hello all, a Knife Tale here, bringing you a knife review of a knife that knife review. You know what, I could restart this. I'm not going to. I'm going to go with it. We're sticking with it. We're flying here. This is a knife summary of a knife that I've done a review on. This is the Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. As you can see, I have two of them because I love these knives. I will link the full review down below. Just a little quick recap. You have about 3.5 inches of blade, 7 8 overall, 4 1/4. So the ratios, blade to handle length, very good. They're quite light. They're milled out. These are made by, I don't know, they're not milled out. I guess the weight reduction is just, I forgot about that. The weight reduction is the carbon fiber milling on the outside. That would make sense, but I just didn't even think about it for a second there. Blade to handle ratio, overall weight, these are wonderful. What you're looking at is titanium, contoured titanium, with the inlay of carbon fiber. This particular one is a front flipper, though they have done a run where they were rear flippers too. These ones are in M390, I believe. Was this? I can't remember. This one might have been an S90V. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But the one good thing, and the reason I don't care about not remembering, is because look at this. Brian Nadeau's logo and nothing. Completely sterile. Does that not look better than having a bunch of writing all over the blade? Yes, the answer is yes, it does. These are designed by Brian Nadeau at Sharp by Design, and they are produced by Riot, because these are the production runs of an iteration of his custom knives that he does. You also have a fuller, which can in fact be used and reverse flicked off of for the opening mechanism. And before we talk about anything else, I want to mention the detent system, because that's really one of the big selling points on this knife. Brian Nadeau uses a different detent system. See in there, instead of a ball, it's a nub. It's like a little, almost triangular little nub. And that has, from what I've experienced in like having 8 or so Sharp by Design knives, creates a very, very consistent feeling pop. They feel completely unique when the detent breaks, and it's surprisingly consistent. It really is. And that's like one of the most interesting things about his knives. They feel like their own thing. They're in their own category, really. And I gotta give Riot credit for it. I don't know if it's because he provides extra details in his planning, like his information that he gives to Riot based on for what they have to make the knives and the specs and everything. I don't know. But when you get a Sharp by Design knife made by Riot, it feels good even for Riot. It's hard to explain. They're finished. Even if they're not the most flashy, exaggerative pieces, they're finished to a level that is just exceptional even for them, and Riot does good work in general. But there is something special about these knives. If you've ever gotten a chance to feel them, I would suggest you at least take the chance to check it out. The pop, the finish on the handles, the chamfering, they're almost all clamshell constructions or something like a clamshell construction where there's no actual backspacer and the two pieces of the scale meet in different areas and places in various ways depending on the model. But the execution is just top tier. This was, I believe, the original run that has the blue carbon fiber, and this was the later run with the shipwreck green and like copper patina carbon fiber, which is why they call it a shipwreck, I think. You've got a reasonably thin. That, I suppose you could argue, is one of the downsides of this knife. It could be a little bit, in the Mini Tempest in particular, it could be a tiny bit thinner behind the edge. It does taper to get a bit thicker as you're going forward. It definitely does. It's not bad, but because it's not like, you know, a full... It's kind of like a saber height grind. It's not a super tall blade. It's not a super giant knife. Like, here's your standard full-size knife compared to it, and why am I doing this here? I don't know. Shush. It's a bit smaller. It's a compact knife. It's very gentlemanly. It's very elegant and refined. It's not tall. It's weighted and balanced pretty darn well from where you're going to hold this thing, right? I wouldn't mind seeing, even if you don't do a hollow grind, just maybe a tiny bit thinner of a flat grind. Just a tiny bit. That said, it's not bad. This is just me being nitpicky, because that's what I have to do with this knife. It's be nitpicky, really. Behind the edge thickness on this knife, it has not been sharpened, is 15-ish thousandths, which is perfectly adequate. Like this is, there's no real reason to nitpick that. I just like hollow grinds, so disregard all of that. It's got a beautiful hand satin, nice swedge, jimping that is actually, well, I can't use it here, but it actually is functional. Even though it's not my favorite kind of jimping, they've done it well enough that it is functional. 6-gun pivot, or the six barrel pivot, as almost always. The stop pan is completely out of the way. You can cut in your own sharpening choil. The plunge grind comes a little bit close to the edge. I think it's about right here that the plunge grind ends, but you can always cut in more. And that still does give you a little bit of life before you start getting sort of smiley kind of area. Yeah, I think it's about there. The lock bar also has a nice little feature that I particularly like. As you can see, it's not actually cut back, but the lock bar insert itself is what you interact with for the lock bar. And it protrudes just a little bit to give you that little bit of grip. So you can get this thing pretty much completely from the side. No problem whatsoever disengaging. And he's left a little bump on the tang here, so that's kind of what hits you instead of, you know, the blade going whoop. You can pretty much stop it consistently there, and then it just swings closed. They're super smooth, they're super well done. They're on bearings. They're wonderful knives. Centered, I've yet to have one that wasn't centered or that I couldn't immediately center. And you can tell because there's, you know, the little clamshell line there is where you need to be. Aside from the nitpicking of the non-existent actual issue of the thickness, because, again, 15 thousandths is totally reasonable. It just might... Maybe it'll, if I lay the angle back, it'll get thicker too fast. I don't know. But 15 thousandths is not a problem. Most of the time, the clip is wonderful. There are a few models where the clip, because it has kind of hard edges, despite nothing else on this knife having those edges, has made it a little bit more noticeable or uncomfortable. This particular model, not in the slightest. It is disappearing. So, no problem there. Though, I will say, I do think, if there's anything, the clips are the weak points on Sharp by Design knives. I love them. I have every model except for the Void, and that's because I think it came out shortly before I really started getting into knives. The clips are the weak points. They need to be rounded like the rest of the knife, just for uniform sake. But they also tend to be really tight. They work. But, man, they are tight. I don't know if it's because they get too thick at a weird spot or something, but they tend to be quite tight. At least in my experience. And, well, on the 9 or 8 or 9 knives that I have from him. Despite all that, I love Sharp by Design knives. I love the design. I love the execution. They're expensive. They're usually in the around the $400 range, which is definitely expensive. But collaboration with this level of execution coming from Riot, yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of where you're at. So, I don't like the angle of that. I'm going to have to change the angle of my camera a little bit. That's a side thing, but yeah, Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. Great knives. Totally worth checking out. I love them. That's all for the summary. Just shook the entire camera. Alright, that's all for the summary. I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.